The morning air inside the View's studio carried a sharp, crackling tension, one that began long before the cameras warmed up or the audience filed into their seats. Crew members passed each other in hurried strides, clutching clipboards, adjusting lighting, whispering last-minute instructions into earpieces. Even among the usual chaos, there was a certain urgency in the way they moved today. Margot Robbie wasn't just another guest, she was the guest, the kind who guaranteed massive viewership, trending clips, and an energy shift in the entire room. Audience members filled the rows, murmuring excitedly as they took their seats. Some clutched posters from Barbie. Others wore subtle pink accessories as a nod to Margot's cultural influence. The energy was bright and expectant, until it wasn't. As the countdown to the live broadcast neared, a strangely sharp electricity cut through the air. The hosts could feel it, the producers could feel it, and even the audience sensed that today's show wasn't going to be another smooth celebrity interview. Something was brewing. Joy Behar sat rigid in her chair, arms folded, jaw tight. She'd been prickly all morning. Kicking off her shoes backstage, she'd muttered to the makeup team, "These celebrities think they know everything about everything." She didn't say Margot's name, but everyone knew exactly who she meant. The crew pretended not to hear. They always pretended. She'd spent 10 minutes ranting about Hollywood hypocrisy and performative activism, a rant that became the emotional backdrop of the entire studio before Margot even arrived. Whoopi Goldberg watched Joy with wary eyes. She'd been doing this long enough to recognize when a co-host was ready to pick a fight. And Joy wasn't just ready, she was waiting. The slightest provocation would tip her from sarcastic banter to open confrontation. That was clear as day. The producer gave the 30-second signal. Music cued. The lights brightened. Sarah Haynes inhaled deeply, hoping the show wouldn't implode before the first commercial break. Sunny Hostin glanced at Joy's stiff posture and muttered under her breath, "Here we go." And then the doors parted. Margot Robbie stepped onto the stage, and the entire atmosphere shifted. The audience erupted in applause, loud, warm, genuine. She beamed as she waved, her graceful presence instantly softening the edges of the room. Dressed in a sleek, cream-colored suit that made her look both modern and timeless, she carried her usual blend of down-to-earth charm and star-level brilliance. She slid into her seat beside Whoopi, brushing a strand of blonde hair behind her ear as she smiled brightly at the hosts. "Welcome, Margot," Whoopi said with real enthusiasm. "Thank you," Margot replied. "It's lovely to be here." The interview began easily enough. Whoopi asked thoughtful questions about Margot's latest project, a screenplay she'd produced and starred in, centered around female empowerment and equal pay in a male-dominated industry. Sarah chimed in, gushing about how inspirational the film was. Sunny added her praise, connecting the movie to real-world issues. Margot responded with articulate warmth, her eyes shining with conviction as she spoke about the importance of representation, fairness, and creating opportunities for women behind the camera. But Joy's silence grew heavier, more pointed, more deliberate. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed tightly, lips pursed, waiting for her moment like a cat stalking prey. When the conversation naturally drifted toward Margot's advocacy work, Joy finally leaned forward, tapping her pen on the table as if preparing for a courtroom cross-examination. "So, Margot," she said, voice deceptively casual, "you've been doing a lot of talking about sexism and pay gaps in Hollywood." Margot nodded, unaware of the incoming spike. "Yes, I think it's important." Joy cut her off. "But don't you think it's a little convenient?" The air shifted, an instant, palpable drop. Margot blinked. "Convenient?" Joy shrugged with exaggerated innocence. "Well, yeah, I mean, you're one of the highest paid actresses in the industry right now. Isn't it a bit hypocritical to complain about the system when you're one of the people benefiting from it?" The audience reacted with a collective gasp. Not laughter, not applause, just a raw, instinctive "oh." Margot's smile faltered for half a second. She regained composure quickly, but Joy had struck the kind of nerve that wasn't easy to ignore. "I'm not complaining," Margot said calmly. "I'm pointing out a problem. Speaking up doesn't make someone hypocritical. It makes them responsible." "Oh, please," Joy scoffed. "If the system is so unfair, why are you doing so well? Seems like it's working just fine for you." Sunny's eyes widened. Whoopi shot Joy a warning glance. Sarah looked like she wanted to sink under the table. Margot exhaled slowly, her posture straightening, her energy shifting from open and warm to sharp and focused. "Joy," she said, voice clear but controlled, "advocating for others doesn't negate my own success. In fact, Success gives me a platform to help others who don't have one. Joy rolled her eyes. Sure, very noble of you. That was it. The tension in the room snapped like a tight wire. The audience turned fully to Margot now, not out of curiosity, but in anticipation. Something monumental was about to unfold. Margot leaned slightly forward, her expression composed but no longer soft. Joy, you're twisting my words. You're trying to frame advocacy as hypocrisy. It's not. Calling out injustice isn't self-serving, it's necessary. And I'm not going to apologize for using my voice. The applause that erupted after Margot's sharp, surgical response rattled Joy Behar more than she wanted to admit. She wasn't used to being challenged on her own turf, certainly not by a guest, and definitely not by someone as adored as Margot Robbie. But instead of backing down, Joy leaned into the tension like a boxer stepping back into the ring after being knocked off balance. The producers behind the cameras were already in panic mode. One of them whispered frantically into his headset, "Cut to commercial if it gets worse." Cut to commercial. Another shook his head, eyes wide. Not yet. Ratings are spiking. Whoopi Goldberg attempted to ease the atmosphere, offering a light chuckle. Okay, ladies, let's keep it cool. We're live. But Joy wasn't hearing it, not really. Her pride had taken the blow personally. She straightened in her chair, lips tightening into something that wasn't quite a smile. Margot, she said with a brittle calm, if you're going to walk into a political conversation, you better be prepared for pushback. Margot's jaw flexed ever so slightly. She had been prepared for tough questions. She had not been prepared for Joy to publicly twist her advocacy into a character flaw. Still, she kept her voice steady. Pushback isn't the problem, she replied. Disrespect is. That did it. The studio's atmosphere froze in place, like the entire room was holding its breath. Sunny Hostin shifted uncomfortably. Sarah Haynes stared at her cue cards, pretending to look busy. Whoopi rubbed her forehead like she was trying to massage the stress out of her skull. And then Joy snapped. Oh, please, she said, waving her hand. Don't act like you're some martyr here. You actors come on this show, talk about your causes, and expect applause for doing the bare minimum. It's performative. It always is. The air cracked open again, sharper. This time, the audience murmured, some in shock, some in disapproval. Margot blinked once, slowly, and then she laughed, a short, incredulous sound. Performative. Joy shrugged with faux innocence. If the shoe fits. Margot leaned in, her expression no longer soft, no longer patient. It was the expression of a woman who had finally reached her limit. Joy, I didn't come here for applause. I came here to talk about a film that matters to me. And if you can't handle that without turning it into some cynical attack, that's on you, not me. Joy rolled her eyes again, louder this time. Spare me the sanctimony. Spare me the bitterness. Margot shot back before she could stop herself. The audience erupted, not in laughter, not in gasps, in full-throated cheers. Joy's mouth dropped open. Sunny looked at the floor. Sarah looked at the ceiling. Whoopi mumbled something that sounded suspiciously like, Lord, give me strength. The producers were practically yelling into the headsets now. We need a commercial, now. Not yet, the clip is going viral already. Hold, hold. Joy leaned forward, jabbing her finger on the table. You don't get to call me bitter just because you can't answer a question. I answered it, Margot said, refusing to flinch. You just didn't like the answer. Oh, please, no, Joy, Margot interrupted firmly. This isn't about my movie anymore. This is about you trying to turn every conversation into a fight. I'm not here for that. The audience roared again. Joy's face turned a deep shade of red. Whoopi stepped in. All right, that's enough. We're moving on. But Joy shot back before Whoopi could regain control. You know what? If you can't handle a real discussion, maybe you should stick to scripted lines. And that was the last straw. The final blow. The line that crossed every boundary. Margot sat completely still for 2 seconds. Then she inhaled, stood up, and the room went silent. Every movement she made felt amplified, the push of her chair, the slow rise to her feet, the controlled breath she took before responding. She looked directly at Joy, her voice calm but ice cold. You don't get to dismiss my intelligence because I'm an actress. That's outdated, it's sexist, and it's insulting, not just to me, but to every woman in my industry who works twice as hard to be taken seriously. Joy opened her mouth to respond. Margot didn't let her, and if this is what a real discussion looks like to you, cutting people off, belittling them, twisting their motives, then no, Joy. I don't want to be part of it. The audience erupted again, cheering, clapping, hollering. Someone even whistled. Margot turned to the other hosts. Thank you, Whoopi, Sunny, Sarah, I appreciate you. Then she turned back to Joy, this time with a look that ended the argument more decisively than any words could. And I don't have to sit here and be disrespected for entertainment. With that, she stepped away from the table. The cameras scrambled to follow. The producers were yelling again. Cut to commercial, cut now, but they were too slow. The country, and soon the world, was watching as Margot Robbie, globally adored movie star, walked off the set of The View in real time. Joy, for once, was speechless. Her eyes darted across the room, searching for support. But she found none, not from the audience, not from her co-hosts, not even from the production crew. Whoopi exhaled loudly, pulled off her glasses, and dropped them onto the table. Well, she said, breaking the suffocating silence that went left real fast. Sarah finally spoke. Joy, you didn't have to go that hard. Sunny added, she was a guest, Joy. Joy threw her hands in the air defensively. What? I asked questions. That's the job. No, Whoopi said, firmly. The job is having a conversation, not driving someone off the stage. As the studio descended into awkward murmurs, the screen finally cut to commercial. Too late to undo the moment, too late to soften the explosion that had already detonated in front of millions. Backstage, Margot walked quickly, her heels clacking sharply against the polished floor. Her breathing was steady, but her hands shook with adrenaline. Crew members stepped aside, unsure whether to speak to her or simply let her pass.